welcome to another episode of Navigating the Matrix with Natural Law Principles. I'm your host, as always, Stephen Wybrow, and I'm very grateful to be doing this show. And I'm very grateful that you are a part of this. And there is a lot of information to get through, and I decided to do another recording of the video that I did on Friday and also add some more depth to it. So it's going to be even longer, and if you're used to only 10 minutes of videos or maximum 20 minutes, then this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. But anyways, it takes as long as it takes, and I really strongly recommend you watch the entire show here because this information is crucial, especially in the times we're living in right now, because we're right in the middle of an information war, and these are very intense times, these are very exciting times, and we're gonna get through this. I'm absolutely 100% sure. So, there is a lot to get into in this presentation, so I would say we start right away. As viewers of the show are already accustomed to see, I like to show the picture of Plato's allegory of the cave because it symbolizes perfectly what the show is all about, namely that instead of being continuously distracted by the shadow projections on the wall, be they in whatever form, rather than staying in the cave and being distracted by all sorts of information, on this show we try and get out of the cave. What is the knowledge that and the understanding that can get us out of the prison? That's what this show is dedicated. And once we get out of the prison, and in the process of getting out of the prison, we can create a new world, a new paradigm, for the old paradigm is crumbling as we speak, and there has to come something new, something we probably all have been waiting for and are really yearning for to experience. Finally, the new earth. And I hope to give you important insights and concepts in manifesting this new world together. And for those of you who are watching this video in its early stage, you still have the opportunity to watch a historic moment today. And today, in general, is a historic day. It's the 3rd of May 2020. It's also a very symbolic and special day for me, for reasons I might get into in another video. However, I feel it's a very energetically charged day today, and there's part 3 happening later on today at 5 p.m. English time. So I definitely recommend you tune in to the conversation of Rose ICKE 3, and it's going to create massive ripples effects across the world, and it's going to be absolutely historic. They're aiming to have the largest live stream ever in the history of the world. They're aiming for up to 1 million people to be watching simultaneously. That's why they created the Digital Freedom Platform, to not be censored. And this is what is happening as we are speaking right now. David Icke has been censored on Friday by Facebook, completely deleted his account, and today I have found out that he's also been censored from YouTube, so his YouTube account was also completely deleted. So this is hotting up this entire thing, and there is a very big insight to be had when you understand and you ask the question why they are censoring a 68-year-old man having a conversation together with Brian Rose. what is the underlying cause for censoring two people having a conversation, and what is there more of a human thing than wanting to find out the truth about things and having a conversation about it? You see, that's what the system is most scared of real people with real talk, and where other human beings, tune into that energy, and that's how simple the solution to the problems and challenges that we face in the world is. It's extraordinary because, as I said in the previous episode, it is on a base level that it's information that changes our perception, and it's our perception that changes our experienced reality. So that's what these censorers don't want you to have access to, and because then you would change more than you can ever imagine. And we're right in the middle of this spiritual battle, you know. We're right in the middle of this war. And this war is of a spiritual nature. You know, everything is trying to prevent humanity from moving on. But that's what's gonna happen, you see? And everything has its timing, and it all depends how our own response is to the information that we receive. Because Brian Rose also said in one of his videos that the real work actually starts after Rose ICKE 3, the conversation they're having. That's where the real work starts, and he's absolutely right. And we are right in the middle of it. So that's why I want to share my perspective on this unfoldment of the spiritual battle, because I think this information that I'm sharing is very powerful and can be of extraordinary help to a lot of people, in dealing with these very challenging of times. And that's why I also want to get this message out, that's why I also use this picture. There's a reality check ahead, okay? So what I mean by that is that a lot of the information presented in this presentation can be very challenging, possibly. It could be that emotions will come up whilst you're watching this video, and just remember that these emotions, are an expression of life force energy, and they are the gateways, to our own awakening in connecting with that life force energy. And yeah, just navigate through it, and we're in for quite a ride here. I wanted to express right at the beginning. And one of the questions that I wish you contemplated in this moment right now is, are you ready for the truth? Because that's what this video series is dedicated to do, is sharing truth-based knowledge. And that doesn't mean that it is me that possesses the truth, no. But I can guarantee you that I give my absolute best of shots at conveying to you truth, because truth is the basis for freedom. And that's my one and only aim in all of this. I'm not here to give you a version of reality that suits me. I've got nothing to sell here. All I have to give is the information I've gathered over 10 years and filtered out. And this is the information that is not only important, but I condense the information to what's really important at this time. There's so many interesting fields, as you may know yourself also. There's so many interesting aspects to investigate and look into, and I do so myself. However, there is also the core of knowledge, that is, in my estimate, the most important knowledge, and that's what I wish to share. And the thing is, would we recognize the truth if it were presented to us? That's an interesting question to ponder, and it is something that I can observe is a lot of people are still constantly in search mode in this moment right now, and I think it would be time to let the truth in and let it settle in our being and apply it in our own life. So that's a picture of what truth is. It is independent of subjective perception and subjective awareness, as is symbolized here by the square and by the circle. And these are subjective perspectives of the truth. It's our perceptions. Okay. However, the truth is objective. It's like the sun that doesn't need shadow to shine, The sun would symbolize an absolute principle, whereas the shadow is relative to something that is absolute. And truth is objective and it is absolute, and the truth stays the truth if we are aware of truth-based knowledge or if we're not. It has an impact on us anyway. So the most important thing that we could share with each other is truth-based knowledge, and then apply that knowledge in our life. And you know what? One of the biggest lies in the world that we live in is is that you can't know the truth. It's amazing. It's right on the same level as saying, well, you can't change anything, it's always going to be the same. It's the same as you can't know the truth. I mean, it's bullshit, basically. That is untrue, and that's where you are in the realm of belief systems. Okay? When you are not aware of the truth and you need something to hold on to in a state of confusion, then a lot of people, they fall into different belief systems, because they need an anchor to hold on to. And one has to ponder on the fact that belief is the enemy of knowledge. And what it takes is foundational knowledge. So it is foundational knowledge and truth-based knowledge where the belief systems can fall away by understanding the basics. And there's an expression in the ancient world which says that there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, there is no news here on this show. That's what I want to say with this picture. And what I'm sharing has been known for time immemorial. Okay? It is not about finding out the news every single day and what's new, what's happened in this show, but it's about the underlying principles that have always been with us from the day we were born until the day we die. These principles never change. The path to freedom, although there's infinite ways of walking that path, the basic principles of that path always stay the same. And one needs to align with the principles of natural law. That's the fundamental basics and the foundation on what the universe we experience is founded upon. And these are principles because principles come from the root word princeps, which means first and foremost. Okay? We live in a society right now that has no principles. You see? There's no principles, and basically people believe they make up and they decide what is right and wrong, you know? And that's what needs to happen again as in our lives and as humanity, that we implement those principles, you know, the most important of knowledge, into our own being and live by that. And natural law is expressed through 7 basic underlying principles, plus an 8th principle which binds the other 7 together. These principles constitute a master key through which universal wisdom, including the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining what we desire, is unveiled or de-occulted. And this is a slide that I have borrowed from a wonderful researcher who I've already mentioned a few times in this show, called Mark Passio. So if you want to get the basics of natural law, I really recommend you watch the natural law seminar that you can also still view on YouTube. It's fundamental knowledge to understanding what natural law is all about. And it represents, as it's shown in the picture, it represents a master key. It's a key for all doors, you know. If any door is shut on us, you know, with an understanding of these natural law principles and the application of it, you have got a key to any door you wish to open. And that's very powerful knowledge, you know. That is the knowledge of natural law, and it is about time that this knowledge got out to as many people as possible, because if a critical mass lives in harmony with natural law, you know, it's gonna change everything. And what it is, what natural law symbolizes in this picture of the tree of life or the tree of knowledge, what it would represent here in this picture is actually the entirety of the tree. But as I've already said, you know, this is foundational knowledge. This would be the root and the stem of the tree, you know. And what I see a lot in the world is that there's a lot of knowledge that is from this basic picture, is with the stems, you know, with the stems and the leaves, you know. That's where we start the conversations, and we go off into all tangents, you know. And but the root level of knowledge, the root level and the stem, is unfortunately missing a lot of times. And if we substitute that, and if we put that into our lives, and we live by these very simple principles, so I mean, this is the most occulted of knowledge, meaning hidden knowledge in the world. But it's actually not complicated knowledge. It's actually very simple, you know. And that's why it's been kept from us. Because if we have that foundation, if we are rooted in that knowledge, you know, we are strong. You know, we are really strong, and it's less, much less possible to manipulate us when we are rooted in our being. And one of the principles of natural law is the principle of mentalism. Okay? which means that the universe we experience is of a mental nature. It is a mental universe that we experience, a reality based on mentalism. Reality is changeable through an understanding and an application of these mental forces, and that deals exactly with the expressions of consciousness. And the basis of this reality that we're experiencing, that we learned since our childhoods, ever since we came into this world, unless you are an exception to that, that it's a material reality, and there's you, and then there's the environment around you, and that we are a separate entity in this environment. And that worldview, which is the viewing the universe as a materialistic universe, and that's where we also get the basic foundation of our society of materialism also, and consumption. Those things are related with each other. But this worldview is wrong by the very fact that and that is also admitted by the mainstream version of science, which is not science at all. It is scientism. It's a belief system founded upon dogmas, and that dogma actually crumbles completely. The house of cards falls apart completely when you look at how an atom is structured. And mainstream science also has to admit that the atom on which everything in our reality is founded upon is actually 99.9999999% empty space. And actually, when we look deeper into this, it's actually 100% empty space. And that what we call materialistic, or something that we can touch, is actually all based in its foundation on frequencies. And that's where we get the very important quote from the scientist Nikola Tesla, when he said that when you look at the universe, look at the universe in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And if we do that, when we understand that there is an underlying frequency, an underlying energy to everything, including us and including everything that we see in our reality, that changes our perception in how we interact with this reality. And there is no reason then anymore to see yourself as alone and powerless to change anything, because that would be a possible conclusion if we were to live in a materialistic universe where you are separated materially from the environment, but we are actually connected with it, and therefore it is us that changes the things around us. And if we would come to this understanding, then we are going to change the world, because the world is actually inside of us. When I first read my first book of David Icke, which was in 2012, called Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, he went into this aspect at the very beginning of the book, and it just blew my mind. My whole worldview was flipped upside down just reading the first few pages of that book. And it was this sort of knowledge where the penny just dropped. It was not something new that I learned whilst reading that in that moment. It was not something new. It was something that I remembered again. Oh, finally, yes. The world that, as I experience it, seems outside of myself is actually a creation inside myself. And that penny dropped in that moment, and I felt such a calmness coming into my being. And obviously that also leaves you, again, as you experience this topsy-turvy crazy world. You're not always in a state of calmness. But this is a foundational knowledge that we have to implement in our being. We have to have that anchored in our being and live by that. For then there is nothing to fear. It all originates because of the mental nature of the universe, and you are a big part of that. We are the manifestation of the world as it is, and we are the only ones that can change it from the inside out. And therefore I strongly recommend not to fall into the biggest of traps that is always played with us. It's always at play, and one can see with the QAnon narrative that we don't need saving from outside. We can do it together, and it's the only way we're going to do it is when we step into our power and apply this understanding in the world around us. Yes, the world is inside of us. The whole thing at its foundation flips upside down, inside out, and peace settles. Let that settle in. Everything that you experience outside of you is inside of you. And let that fear, anxiety, and frustration, whatever that may be, just let it go for that moment. And that was the foundational truth that was spoken in the Matrix movie, when Morpheus asked Neo, "What is real? How do you define real?" If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. Exactly. Because that's the foundational truth, that these elite circles that are so powerful don't want you to know. That, and we know this from the way our hearing sense works. Our sense of hearing is that we get vibrational information coming through which is picked up by the ears, and then this vibrational information is transferred to electrical information in the brain, and then the brain reads that information, and suddenly we can hear, and that happens instantly without us ever questioning that process. You see, and the same is with speech. There is no word interaction between us right now, but these are only vibrational information field that come to the ears, okay, and do that process that I just explained, translate the vibrational information to electrical information, and the brain reads that, and it is that which we can hear. And the same thing happens what we can see. Vibrational information coming in through the eyes, that vibrational information is then translated to electrical information for the brain to process, and when the brain reads that information, it constructs the visual reality that we experience. That's what happens. And everything that we experience outside of us is a construction of our mind. That's why it's a mind-based reality. we are mentally projecting all the time. This reality is founded upon the principle of receiver-transmitter systems. Okay? And there is constantly an interaction between the two. Okay? And if we apply our heart, if we integrate the heart into our being, into and have the mind impacted by the heart, then that which we experience outside will change profoundly. That's why we need to activate the heart. And that is what these oh so powerful elites that are running this world do not want you to know about, because they themselves can't access their hearts. You can't have a heart when you do the things that they do, and they are so scared of people like David speaking their truth, because he, the same as me, doesn't have anything to sell to you. You don't have to believe any what David says, or I say, or Brian Rose says. It is just an investigation into the nature of reality and how we can actually change it, which is a fundamental human interest to have. Okay? And these oh so powerful elites, the ones that are really running the show, they might be powerful in their materialistic, money-based construct, a paper-based reality where money rules the world, a money that should soon be digitized. They want a digital currency for total control. But we give those people far too much credit, and it's about time that we start to see them also in a new light. And these elites, when I talk that they control the world by the issuing of currency, of money, again, that is true. Okay? But that they control the world through money and the issuance of money, and that money rules the world, this is true. However, there are levels of truth that are closer to the truth of what's actually going on. And it is not the fact that they have control of the money supply, that they control our world, but it's the very basis of who these people running our world into slavery. They are actually, in their very nature, they are a priest class. Okay. Referred to in the ancient world as black magic. They are black magicians, deep in the shadows. I'm not talking about the George Soroses or Bill Gates or Elon Musks of this world, or Mark Zuckerberg, Nah, they might even also be quite clueless on the level that they're at. And they're just serving their puppet masters, in the background, in the shadows. And what's really driving this agenda from the shadows is a dark occult priest class that are using black magic, manipulation techniques to make the world go into the direction they want it. They want to take it. And that is done with black magic and manipulation. So the jargon used for 2020, for example, for black magic would be social engineering, okay? Psychological control of the masses. How you make consensus, how you make consensus opinions for the masses, you know, and socially engineer the masses to believe the version of the story that you want them to believe, and anything that goes against that version that you present on any issue, then you term and label that as conspiracy theory, because you don't even want to have people start to question the very nature of this world. You don't want them to start, because once the first domino falls, people have a intriguing nature, human beings are by their very nature intrigued and want to know. So you want to stop that right away and not go there and label everyone as a conspiracy theorist, because what happens if you start to question more? And that's what they're scared of, and they want to stop that in their tracks at the very beginning. And they don't want you to know the very nature of who they in the shadows are. And that's what they really are. That's the best expression I've ever heard to describe the nature of this dark occult priest class that is manipulating the world. And that is the forces of limitation. That's what they are. As I said, at the very basis of this reality, as the quote from Nikola Tesla goes, when we see the world as energy, frequency and vibration, the energetic expression of the manipulative force in the shadows is a force of limitation. They are an expression of forces of limitation. They are Satanists, yes. However, on a deep, deep level, they are restricted because they lack empathy, they lack the intelligence of the heart. That's why they don't want human beings to access the intelligence of the heart, and therefore they are restricted. They are, by their very nature and by their consciousness, in a state of limitation, and the entire trick that they play on us is to have us limited in a smaller box than they are. That's the entire magic trick. These oh so powerful elites, they are not. That's the trick that they're playing on us. And if we can see them in that light, then we are in a much better position. Yeah, and they lock us into a box that is smaller than the limited box that they're in, and that's what can be described as a prison of the mind, as is alluded to in the Matrix movie, because the mind is that which projects reality and makes the being experience a reality through the nature of the being's mind. And by restricting the sense of the possible of human beings, these forces of limitation lock us into a mind matrix, a limited version of reality. And that's where they want to get us into a completely controlled reality. And the end product they want to have psychologically is they want to have you in a state of confusion, because that feeds the illusion. Okay, they don't care in which way they get you to this exact point. They don't care what you believe in, as long as you stay in a state of confusion, and this could also be going down the rabbit hole all the time and not having the foundational knowledge needed to anchor yourself in your being, and grow in your nature through that knowledge. No, if you stay in a state of confusion by the overload of information that is presented to us through the internet, which is a very important media to have, but it can also be, as anything, it can also be a curse because there's so much information out there. And the key thing is to decipher the really important information. And that's why I'm doing these video series, to share this foundational knowledge of natural law. Because if we have that, if we are rooted in our being and we integrate that knowledge and live by that knowledge, then we manifest freedom. That's what's needed, and it is that foundation that deletes the state of confusion and no longer feeds the illusion. And when people ask me, what the number one problem that we have in the world is, I don't say that it's the elites that are running the world. I also don't say that it's because the masses are not awake that's the biggest problem. No. The nature of the biggest problem on the planet is mind control, which is expressed also as the state of depression. That for me is the biggest problem in the world, and we can only help that and lift that burden on our species by sharing this information and going deep. Because I myself, I have suffered from years of depression, and it's been very, very hard. I've been sad a lot in my life, but that nature of the depression lifted and I'm in a far better state of being ever since I put into effect the knowledge that I'd been studying over all these years. Ever since last year, since I've been on speaking tours all across Austria. Last year I did loads of 5G related speaking events, and also talking about natural law, because I always wanted to get that crucial information in there, obviously, because it's the most important of knowledge. And ever since I put the information I know into effect in the world, that's where the depression lifted. Why? Because I'm walking the talk. You see, that's what changes everything. And that is the nature of true power. It is not some elite class printing money out of thin air. And it's also not knowledge is power. That is the basis of power. But real power, by the very nature, that real energy that lifts a state of depression, is the application of knowledge. Using the knowledge that is given to you for your being what you would like to do in the world. That's what's going to change the world, okay? Therefore, it is of uttermost importance that you take yourself seriously and believe in yourself. This video series is dedicated to education being the kindling of a flame. My flame gets ignited by people like David ICKE or Brian Rose, and that flame that is burning inside of me is then given over to you. And that's the very simple nature of how we are going to change the world. That's the most important problem we need to face in this world, because I can understand people being depressed by the situation we find ourselves in. I mean, Jesus Christ. What have we gotten into, you know? And it serves a purpose also. And we can get through. The very basis of depression is a mental state of confusion, and that is mind control. When we are not in control of our own mind, then by definition someone else is controlling our mind. If we're not in control, someone else is going to be. And therefore it is mind control that is the biggest problem we have, you know. That's why clarity is freedom. Clarity is freedom. That's why the work that I'm doing is priceless. Because it is only if we only stay in a state of always having to keep searching and searching and searching, then we always will be in a state of being, of searching. We can let things settle also in clarity. And the best clarity, in my understanding, is given by having a clear understanding of the nature of our existence and why things are as they are. And that clarity is freedom in this very moment. We are in a state of freedom. When we are not in a state of confusion, we are not in a state of depression. And in this very moment, no matter how you felt before, that clarity, just let in that light, you know, let in that clarity, and in that moment, you are already in freedom. The solutions are simple, but it's mostly that which is right in front of our noses, the knowledge right in front of us, where you say, oh yes, yeah, sure, that's the way things are. You only need to apply that and stop searching for a moment. Do it with a different perspective, a different perception. And where we're being played at is the game of duality. That's the game of the Matrix, and that's why on the floors of Freemasonic temples you get the checkered black and white floors. You know, they're showing you black and white, everything is black and white, good and bad. It's the game of duality. And duality, the implication of duality is separateness. You know, dual two, you know, there's at least two of us. Me and everything outside of me, it, for example, and that's separate from each other. That's the game of the Matrix. That's how we're being played. And therefore, not surprisingly, the modus operandi of these controllers and the Matrix itself is divide and conquer. Divide, division of one becomes two, and so on. And when they say jump, you know, we just say how high in this game of duality. And that's why the whole world just took on the lockdown and stayed, you know, for the sake of everyone, you know, we stay at home because, yeah, the government told us to, because it's so dangerous to go outside, when it was all a scam, you know. And I can say that without having to prove anything. That is also a basis of freedom. You say things without actually having to show proof, because in my book it is a sharing of ideas. They say jump, we just say how high in the game of duality when we don't know who we are and we don't know what the nature of all of this is. And a great sense of freedom is presented to you when you do this. Yes, exactly. Oh my God, he's swearing. Well, let me tell you that that is actually an expression of heart-based intelligence. It's from a song of Rage Against the Machine, for the ones that know that. They say jump, you just say how high? Your brain dead? Uh-huh. And another verse from this brilliant band is, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Forces of limitation. And the little boys that serve them, look at that. I mean, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Little Zuckerberg. These people are pathetic. We have nothing to fear from them. And it is a great relief when you can just say that with clear pointedness, and by saying no to them, you say yes to yourself. Okay? And I don't mean to be angry at these people, you know. They are sick people, you know. Censoring the views of human beings is absolutely despicable. Yes, he's an idiot, and I don't like these people, you know. However, I also have to understand and accept the nature of the reality we are dealing with. And the nature of this reality is also something that Martin Luther King, for example, said, that what you fight, you become, because you are identifying yourself with that which you are fighting. It is far better to say no to them and say yes to yourself, you know, and integrate the emotions of hate that come up in your being, you know, because it's there for a reason. But we don't fight this system with the same armament that the system uses against us, you see. We have to find something new. We have to transcend this entire matrix. That's the number one thing I'm focusing on in these times right now. How can I transcend the matrix? And that's a process. And how can I share that gift of explaining how we can transcend this matrix with the principles this universe and our psychology is founded upon? Our mind. How can we get out of that prison? That's the number one thing I focus on. Therefore, I ask every one of you who is watching this to share this out. Share this information out with the people that you know. Because the more that transcend the prison of the mind, and by its very nature, as a very important thing to grasp, is that when you are connected to the energy of what I'm conveying here right now, in this very moment you have already transcended the matrix. And when we can anchor that continuously, then we are creating that new world outside of the paradigm of limitation, of scarcity, and into abundance. And transcending the matrix is a problem that can only be solved from a higher level of awareness. As Albert Einstein apparently said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So what I say there is just transcend pathetic people like him. Transcend them. Realize they are limited. They have to censor for a reason. And they are not powerful. They have no power over you. So we have to view the nature of this system, you know, of this matrix, in a new light. And what I said in previous shows is, can you meet the system outside of yourself? Like Neo did, you know, when he went into the machine world and he had this really dark, you know, spiky sort of thing in front of him, the god of AI. was that meant metaphorically? Because in my understanding, you can't meet the matrix outside of you, because it's inside of you. It's a mechanism, it's a program inside of you. And the matrix is actually mind-tricks. It's playing tricks with your mind, and it's trying to keep you asleep, and in its very nature it's just playing tricks with your mind. And the tricks being played on your mind get less once you understand the basic principles of natural law and how our psychology works. When we have that information and that understanding grounded in our being, then the mind tricks get less and less and less, and freedom gets more and more and more, because we move from a state of separation, confusion, and disempowerment to a state of abundance, clarity, and a new paradigm. And the very nature of us human beings, and this is a crucial point to understand. I mean, this is really a diamond that I extracted from the work of the Gnostic scholar John Lam Lash, a book that I can highly recommend. Is Not in His Image, when you want to know more about the Gnostics. And I myself am a modern version of a Gnostic, for I try and combine all of the sciences and not see them as separate of each other. Combine linguistics with mathematics, with metaphysics, with physics. And I'm not an expert in any of it. However, I can talk about these things, and I'm a perfect example that you don't have to be an expert in anything in order to be speaking about something. We need to speak our mind right now. And this knowledge here is hugely important to understand, that the human being is a storytelling animal. That's why we love listening to stories. That's why the ancients sat together next to the fire and told each other stories. That's where we get the basic concept of oral history. That's where we get the basic motivation of writing down history. And what we give to our children, it's all based on a story. And when we know that the stories that we tell each other, the information that we exchange, forms our view of the world, and that's what that's how we create the world, by the stories that we give credence to. And that's where you can understand why they are so determined in censoring David Icke, and why they have to protect with every facet and with every gun and armament that they have to protect the official narrative of anything, like we have right now with the official narrative on the coronavirus, originating from some bat soup, you know. Yeah, right. Talk about fairy tales. It's the same with the official version of 9/11, and especially the official version of reality. And you get called an esotericist, you know. Oh, you're into esoteric. That's why they don't want you to look into esoterics, because that comes from the word eso, meaning within. Okay? And finding out about the workings of the psyche, you know, and then change reality with this understanding. So the Matrix narrative, that's what they most protect. And the Matrix narrative is also that you are a little human being, and you are basically like a virus. You poison the world with the CO2 that you have a symbiosis with the trees and the natural world. Who are you, you little human being? You cannot change anything, and you're basically here for no reason. The Matrix narrative can be easily sussed when we understand that it always leads, no matter what direction they take. It's based on disempowerment. When you listen to something that is disempowering you, when it comes to the official narrative, then you know that it's the Matrix narrative. The end result is always disempowerment. And I'm not talking about when you hear something and you have an emotional response to that. That's not disempowerment, that's what emotional competence is all about, to be able to integrate that emotion and not reject it, as we mostly do. In rejection of emotion happens by reacting to things and not responding to them. Okay, that's where we get empowerment, actually, by integrating our emotions. But disempowerment, and that's why George Orwell, this Matrix narrative of disempowerment, was really, it's such a deep quote that is here. He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past. That is narrative. Past, present, and future, and the only way we can transcend this narrative, which binds together the past, the present, and the future, we can only transcend that in the now, in the present, right here, right now, by being empowered, real empowerment. That's how we can transcend it. And therefore they write the history books in a way where it shows how big the kings are, and how all these wars, and that we can't change anything. That's the perspective of history, and it's not true. When we align the narrative with the important foundational knowledge of how this reality works, it is untrue that we can't change anything. But it's important to change the story that we believe in, and change the perspective of how we view ourselves, and stop being dictated and ruled by the mind of the past, the mind of past experiences. It's extraordinary. That's what the Matrix feeds us in our own minds, are constantly past experiences, and that's how we're being controlled. The nature of the Matrix only operates on the realm of mind. It's up here. As I showed in a previous episode, the definition of a matrix is the order of a thought majority. That's why they want to control the psychology of the masses. And it only applies up in this realm here. And another word for the matrix, another angle of understanding the prison construct that the dark occult want to keep us, is noise. The matrix is noise, which can only be transcended through calmness. It's noise, and it's the narrative it feeds us, and it attaches to that which we've already experienced and which we cannot change anymore. Our past, whatever that was, it takes those bits of information and strings those past experiences together, and the string of informations put together forms a narrative that we then believe in, and it's based only on past experiences, and then makes us go in a loop where we say, nothing ever changes in my life. No matter what I try, nothing ever changes. And it's a narrative of disempowerment, that which we've been through in our life. And it's when we get triggered by things, we get triggered by situations that that we don't want to have happen again in our life. Oh no, here we go again. Have you had this experience? Oh, not again. And we get triggered, and it actually relates to things that happened in the past. And that's where the Matrix keeps its control over us, by identifying ourselves with our past self, with the self of the past, and it lets us stay in the thought loop narrative of the Matrix, going round and round in circles, because we keep believing in the thoughts that are given to us, that are relating to our past experiences, especially the past experiences that we don't want to look at, that we try and reject, and we can only transcend those past experiences that are dominating us, because there is also, I learned this from Dr. Joe Dispenza, and realized that it applies also to my experience, that 97% of the thoughts that we thought the previous day are the same thoughts we're thinking today. And that's how we keep reproducing a reality where nothing changes, Oh, when's that big awakening going to happen? It happens once we transcend the thought loops that we are constantly put into, which are strung together past experiences, a narrative that continues into the now. We get triggered in the now by situations which relate to the past, and the mind then forms this perspective, this narrative of what your life has always been, and applies it in the now. And with that now perspective and now perception, we recreate the experiences again. And that's the Matrix at work right here. There's a Matrix life, and there is a happy life. And all we can do, it's not about rejecting when thought loops come up. I had an experience yesterday, and that's why I think the audio recording didn't work properly on Friday, because I needed to experience that myself still and have a much deeper understanding of this mind matrix. Because I had this experience yesterday where a thought loop came up again, and I could see I felt disempowered by it, and it was sort of like this, oh no, it's happened again, I'm so powerless. Some things, they never change, and I'm really a victim about all of this. And then I realized, as this thought loop came up, oh my god, this breakdown, when you look at it, this breakdown right now, which is a feeling of disempowerment, this breakdown is actually a breakthrough, if I can see it that way, and if I identify it to be a thought loop. It has happened before. I've been living in that thought loop before, and now that I'm triggered, now that I can feel that pain and I feel disempowered again, is exactly the moment where I can transcend it by feeling those emotions. And what I did is I felt into those emotions and just realized, and that's why clarity is freedom. Oh, it's just a thought loop. It's just the mind of past experiences trying to keep me in that thought loop again, because that's how it has control over me. And all I need to do is to realize I'm creating the reality at any moment. And if I just accept the thought loop being here right now and seeing through it, I can let it go. Because every day, every moment is a new chance. And when we have that understanding, we can really transcend this matrix control system. And when we understand how it works through the narrative it feeds us and the noise in our mind, because any thought you didn't choose yourself in a state of imagination, any thought you don't choose yourself is very much, is quite possibly thought projected by the matrix to keep you under control. That's why it's so important to exercise extreme ownership, where you own everything. Not just a little bit. I don't just own my house and my this. No, actually all the circumstances that happen to you. Extreme ownership is hugely important to transcend this matrix. And I'm not always in a state of extreme ownership myself. I fall into the victim blame trap myself, where I feel disempowered about things, and it happens to me too. However, and if you don't feel like stepping out of that zone of disempowerment, that's also okay, and be sad, be with yourself, feel sorry for yourself, really go into that feeling. And when you do that, and when you stop rejecting it, and when you stop resisting that sadness or that disempowerment, when you stop resisting that and you just feel it and you really be with that, you'll come out of it, because you'll realize, well, actually, that was good now, crying, and letting it go. I'm not those emotions, I can actually let them go. And you don't want to stay in that state anyway, it becomes boring after a while, and then you move forward in empowerment, because you are the one you've been waiting for, and we only transcend this matrix when we believe in ourselves. That's why this show is not about telling you what to think, but actually asking you which thoughts come to your mind, which ideas come to your mind as you're watching this very deep information. And everything changes once we become that master of mental forces. Okay? And mental forces are the three expressions of consciousness, which is thoughts, emotions, and behavior. One of the principles of natural law is also the principle of gender, which is male and female, and that also manifests itself in our psychology. The male expression of consciousness is the realm of thought, the female expression of consciousness is the realm of emotions, and those two internal forces, which are the internal mental forces, those two combined together are then outwardly expressed through our behavior. And this dark occult priest class knows this, and that's why they're talking about the new normal with the coronavirus, because they want to change your behavior, because a change in behavior changes the reality you experience. So we have to become master of mental forces and learn how to integrate those emotions, and that's again what this video series is all intended to do. So there's a lot of things that might get repeated here, because the principles are and always will be the same, and I only share the whole picture with you. I don't keep anything away from you, because this information is too important. This is beyond what I have to say. This is important to get out to the people, this information. Okay, we need to become masters of mental forces, and be real warriors, and make a change, and remember why we came here. We didn't come here to be stuck in the prison. We came here to experience the prison ending and being free by transcending it. And as Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that's what it's all about. What I explained with the thought loop, by the noise of information, of thoughts coming in by the matrix, stringing together past experiences to form a narrative that makes you disempowered. And the biggest conspiracy that is happening in our world today is the conspiracy of the dark occult priest class with the shadow aspect of our own psyche. That's why the yin and yang is as it is, because there is also a so-called dark component in our psyche, and this goes hand in hand with the natural law principle of polarity. Okay, so there's dark and light forces at play here in this world, and the only thing that we can do is to master them in our own mind. Okay, that's the best contribution we can make to the world, is to master those forces of light and dark in our own mind. Okay, not having to wake up the people around you. No, it's about mastering our own mind. That's first, and then with that, in the process of that, we give our information to the people. And it's about unity consciousness. When the game of the matrix is the game of duality, okay, we need to return to unity and not be victims of the darkness and the dark side, but actually integrating that shadow aspect within our being in a state of balance and shining our light. Because of that, we only shine that light when we are in a state of balance. And from that perspective, from that perception of unity consciousness, where we masterfully own our mental forces, okay, this is a process, to learn, then we change the world. Unity consciousness is that which is going to change the world, and that's why we need to control and integrate the pendulum of emotions. When the pendulum starts swinging, whoosh, we can master those forces, because when we don't master the pendulum swing of emotions, this is also symbolized for, it's also a symbol for something else, isn't it? Interestingly enough, when we don't master the mental forces, and if we are not in control of our own mind, then someone or something else is in control of that mind. And that's why the pendulum is also used for hypnosis. Okay? To be in a state of trance and manipulated. That's where you're in the program of the matrix, because you are not in control of your own mind, of your mental forces, and your behaviors are dictated by something outside of you. You are feeling sleepy, and they call it hypnosis because it comes from the root word, by its etymology it comes from hippo, which means underneath, and gnosis is a state of knowing. So you are not in a state of knowing, you're underneath it. You're underneath the dark occult priest class that is using the knowledge of gnosis, not in the way that I do by revealing this information, but by hiding it and manipulating you through the application and through the knowledge about natural law. And that's how they keep you in a state of sleep. And therefore, we need to integrate our emotions, master the mental forces, and then the pendulum doesn't swing out so much. Life is a feeling. Life is emotions. It doesn't mean to get rid of emotions. That's the very thing that makes us human. but it's mastering those emotions. And when we integrate those emotions, and by integrating those emotional forces, we also change the mental forces, because the one depends on the other, and they they work together with each other. Once we integrate those emotions, and that's what um, the the calls that I'm offering until the end of May, as I've said previously. That's what these Skype calls that I'm offering for private consultations are all about. To, one of the aspects to go into is how we can integrate those emotions on a deeper level. How do we really do that? These are the sort of things that in my book need further clarification, because that's a process where we go deeper into ourselves, and then when we do that, when we integrate those emotions, we gain access to the life force energy itself, the most powerful of energies. What do you think lets the planets move in the orbits that they move? Electromagnetism. Electro, male, magnetism, female. You see, those life force energies also work through us, through the male thought component and the female emotional component. The micro and the macro level of the universe work together with each other. And through the activation of the life force energy itself, we connect to the natural internet, for it's those natural energies that make us connect to the natural internet, to the new world, to the new paradigm. And none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are awake. Unfortunately, that is a very important quote to put out there, because awakening is a process that we are constantly experiencing. So instead of thinking that we need to, the masses still have to awaken on, and the masses, they have to look into all of that, and I'm disempowered because other people don't think like I do, and they just believe in the television and all that. It doesn't actually matter. If we focus our energies on the things that we can control, and that we can influence, and let go of that which we cannot influence, and stop being hurt by that, because the information that I'm sharing here is very deep. And don't think, although I say that these the dark occult priesthood are the forces of limitation, doesn't mean that the mind control program, the spell that they put on people's minds, is not powerful. It is powerful. I mean, it's incredible. They are masters of manipulation, and they are the forces of limitation. Well, bloody hell, give them some credit. That's a very powerful program, because the program is tied to the fear of existence, existential fears. Something that I'm moving through right now in my awakening. But what I'm giving you here is that it's important to focus on your own awakening, and stop losing your energy to waking other people up, but go deeper in your own awakening and integrate those emotions, integrate into your being the principles of natural law, and live by them. One step at a time. You don't have to go totally crazy, but just one step at a time, and you'll awaken and awaken further. And it's a beautiful process when we change the attitude we have toward our emotions, which are the gateways to our awakening, and the gateways to deeper levels of ourselves, and to our greater being, which resides as the heart soul essence. And that's also important for you, and a reminder for myself also, that frustration is compost for the new you. It also serves a purpose. And there is the saying of the ancient world, a Gnostic incel, that decay is the beginning of all birth. So what we're experiencing right now is those are hugely intense times. That's why in these intense times where it's very stormy, it's good to have a proper foundation inside of you, and that is the foundational knowledge of natural law. Then you can weather the storm. That's why it's so important to me to share out this information to all of you and see things from an entirely new perspective. That frustration or anger or hate or fear or anxiety or sadness, or however it manifests, these shadow aspects of the psyche, the emotions that it triggers, those are compost for the new you, and compost makes the seed grow better because there's more nutrients in it, and it's all the life force energy. The dark emotions of fear as well as the light emotions of joy, and the main work of an alchemist is to transform those emotions of fear into love, emotions of hate into love. Transformation is the name of the game. So it's how we respond to those emotions, and not react to the emotions that come up, whatever they may be. Change your attitude to them and say, oh, thank you for triggering my awakening even more. And when we change that attitude and integrate those emotions into our being, we change everything. You lack nothing, use what I gave you, is the message of the universe in this moment right now. We are on the path to freedom, and now's the time to do everything in your power and really focus your time and attention and energy on your transformational process. And I'll be there for you as assistance, same as people are there for me also. And we're going to come through this. We are in the middle of a birthing process, and no matter how dark it may seem at this point right now, there is always another way of looking at things, and we are moving through this transformation together right now, and the universe has our back. These forces of limitation don't have the power we give them credit to. They have far less power, actually, when we view it from the perspective and how we understand how they manipulate us through the manipulation of our mental and emotional capacities. That's why it's called mental and emotional mind control, and that's what the Matrix is. It feeds you a false sense of the reality that you're experiencing, that you're powerless. You're not. You have everything you have at your disposal. You don't need to read another book. Heart-based intelligence is where you don't have to read another book, where you don't have to watch another video. You already have it. And my message to you is stand in that power for a moment now and realize that you have everything right now. No need to search anymore right now. Do your research with another perception. You lack nothing. Use what I gave you. And that's how we change the world. Okay, this has been a very transformative show today. I'm very happy with it. Wow, and that's a special episode for these special times. This is for you, and I'm very happy to share this information with you, because I want nothing more than us awakening to a new version of ourselves. And if we wake up to a new version of ourselves, then we wake up to a new world, and we change the world. Thank you for having you here on the show today, navigating the Matrix with natural law principles. If this show has helped you in your understanding and you enjoyed what you heard, and it's made a difference, it's made a change in your world, then I really I would be really appreciative if you could also help me financially and make a donation, and the details you find on my website, and make a financial donation or become a Patreon on my Patreon page, because there is much more to come. And when you energetically connect by donating to a cause which you find valuable, you energetically connect with that human being, and that's how we're going to change the world. Because there's nothing that we can fall back to, you see. We are, the way the world's going, the way the forces of limitation, the world that they want to implement, is going to be a social crediting system, and the coronavirus crisis lays the fertile ground to make something like that a reality, and they're aiming to make it global. So by then, all money will be electronically, a complete control grid, and people will get a universal basic income, and everything you do will be measured and will be in a complete controlled reality. So anything that you have that you can give towards the cause would be of immense help right now, because quite frankly I'm just putting this out because it's not about me here, it's about us, and this information needs to get out, and I want to share everything that I have with the human family. And if you can help me financially, that would be fantastic, because all my presentations that I give outside, they've stopped for now, and I've let go of everything. I've let go of all fear, also of fear of my existence, and I'm just working on myself and loving myself for the human being that I am, and also loving myself with my flaws, because my website is still not complete, and I could have done things differently, but the message is more important than anything else. That's why I've put this out together as a special episode, episode 4 of Navigating the Matrix. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week on Friday again for a new episode. And let's see if I can keep it in the time frame of 50 minutes to 1 hour next week. There is so much to be said, and I wish you all the best with your awakening process. And we're moving through this right now. This is powerful, what we are involved in right now, and it's great to be in there together with you. Alright, one great work. You're part of the great work, and looking forward to seeing you again next week. All the best till then. Take care.